You're rarely alone. Your calendar makes sure of that. There are people in every direction, your team, your peers, your stakeholders who all need your input. You have meetings that start before you finish your morning coffee. You've made yourself visible, accessible, and present in rooms that need you constantly. You're lonely in a way you cannot fully explain to anyone because explaining it will require something you have not said out loud. That none of the people who need you every day actually know you. They know your competence, they know your composure, they know the version of you that shows up prepared and in control. The actual woman that you are for real, the one with the real questions, the one with the genuine doubts, and the things that you think on the way home in the car. She hasn't been in the room in a long time. She's been performing or hiding, one of the two. Welcome back, Sophisticates. I'm Davina Dandridge. I'm an emotional empowerment strategist, author of Brains and Baubles Do What Works for You, and the creator of the Self Gut Check Method. I teach women how to recognize their emotions, think strategically, and make decisions they'll be proud of 5 years from now. What I want to talk to you about today is something that does not get named at the senior level because naming it feels like a secret confession. Executive loneliness. The loneliness of being surrounded by people who only know the performance side of you. Every room is full of people and you still feel alone. I want to offer you something more useful than the standard advice to find a mentor or build a network. I want to talk to you about what's actually producing this isolation. Because until that's clear, no amount of connection strategy is going to reach the standard that you desire. This is for directors, VPs, founders, and senior leaders who have mastered the performance of leadership and are quietly paying the price for it. Let me describe what I actually think is happening to you. You've been performing composure for so long that it feels like it's become your default setting. You learned early that showing uncertainty cost you something in your leadership, that expressing doubt made people question your readiness, that the version of you that was unsure, tired, or genuinely struggling was a version of you that you couldn't afford to let anyone see. So you managed it. You learned to process privately and present perfectly in public. You developed the ability to walk into a room feeling something very heavy. The weight was on you, and you let no one see the weight. You never let them see you sweat. That's a real skill. It protected you throughout your career, and it got you right here. Here's what happens over time. The gap between what you feel and what you show at work starts to produce a specific kind of emotional exhaustion, and that it has nothing to do with your workload. It's the exhaustion of never being fully present anywhere, of showing up in every room, but not quite fully present in any of them, of saying the right thing, making the right decision, holding the right posture, and then going home and sitting in the quiet and not being entirely sure who just spent the day doing all of that performing. Your team sees the polished version. Your peers see the strategic version. The people who report to you see authority. The people you report to see competence. The actual you is the one with real questions, the ones you never bring into a professional conversation. You've been managed out of the room so consistently that even in private, you're harder to access than you used to be. You feel burnout, but it's not in the conventional sense. This feeling is something quieter, it's more specific. You're feeling the cost of performing a version of yourself so consistently that you begin to lose track of where the performance begins and where it ends. You're not lonely because you're alone. Your loneliness is because being known feels like a risk you can't calculate. The moment someone sees behind that composure, you're no longer the version of yourself that's been carefully constructed for this level. That version, the polished, prepared, unshakable one, she feels like the only version that's safe to be. The emotional sophistication map helps you identify what is specifically driving your isolation because it's not the same for every woman at this level. For some women leaders, the wall is role identity fusion. Who you are and what you do have merged so completely that any crack in your professional presentation feels like a crack in your real self. You can't let your team see you struggle because you have stopped knowing where the leader ends and the woman begins. For some women leaders, the wall is a fear that's never been tested and never been disproven. You decided early that being seen as less than will cost you in the room. You've never tested whether it's still true or whether that assumption has simply become a habit. For some women leaders, the gap between the leader you perform and the woman you actually are has gotten wide enough that you are no longer sure how to close it or whether closing it is even allowed at this level. The map identifies which pattern is yours. That's where this work begins. The link is in the description. I want to share something personal with you because I think you'll recognize the feeling, even if the circumstance is just a little bit different. There was a moment in my life I was going through a significant personal transition, and I found myself at an event surrounded by women who all appeared to have it all together. Okay. They were talking about their accomplishments, their plans. They had built things professionally, where they were going. And I was there. I was present, I was composed, and I participated in the conversation. Then something changed in the room. Something changed in me. There was a shift. I looked around the room and then I felt a different emotion. And it was subtle. It wasn't like something real big washed over me. It was just a small, quiet feeling. I had been so focused on managing what I protected that I had stopped checking in with what I actually felt, what I actually wanted, what I had actually done for myself. I was surrounded by all of these people, and then I was invisible, but to myself. When I got home, I made a decision. I decided to stop performing for my own benefit and start paying attention to what was actually going on in my environment. I decided to check in with myself the way that I had checked in with everything else. What I discovered is what I want to tell you today. The loneliness was not about the people in the room. It was about how long I had been absent from myself while being fully present for everyone else. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it comes the issues of life." You've been keeping your heart diligently, carefully behind a wall that was built for protection that became a prison. The instruction was never to look at the heart that way. It was to guard it with intention, which means you still have to access it. The question is whether you are willing to jump back in. I found an accountability partner during that season, someone I could think out loud with without managing how I appeared, someone who had no stake in the version of me that I performed for everybody else. That relationship gave me something I hadn't had in years, the experience of being known and being respected, or being real and still being taken seriously. The combination of being known and respected and real is what you may have decided you cannot have at your level. That is the decision I want to challenge today. Loneliness is not the cost of leadership, it's the cost of performing leadership rather than living leadership. The wall you built was rational. A specific environment penalized you for being real. You learned that fully visible is a liability. So you responded by performing strategically about what you showed to other people. That was intelligent. You adjusted. That was survival. Survival strategies don't automatically update themselves when the environment changes. You may be completely different in the room now, but with more authority, with more credibility, with more actual safety than you've ever had. And you're still operating from a set of rules you wrote for a room that you left years ago. Strategic vulnerability is not the opposite of strong leadership. It's what makes strong leadership sustainable. Vulnerability in this context is not just disclosure of everything or full transparency. It's not telling your team everything you feel or bringing your personal struggles into a professional setting. That's oversharing, and oversharing doesn't serve your leadership. Strategic vulnerability is a deliberate choice about what you allow others to see about you in service at work or in relationships. In this moment, you say to your team, the decision is harder than it looks. And here's why I'm thinking about it carefully. It's the moment you acknowledge to a peer, I'm still working through this. It's the moment you let somebody see that you're a person doing a job, not a machine executing a function. Vulnerable visibility doesn't reduce your authority, it increases your credibility. People don't follow perfection, people follow honesty. Your team follows a leader who is real enough to be trusted, not just competent enough to be correct all the time. Leadership is when you decide that being known is not a threat to your leadership, that the woman behind the performance is not a liability, that the actual you, the one with the real questions and the genuine process, is the most credible version of your leadership you have ever led with. I want to show you something practical. There are three questions. I call this the visibility standard. It's how you assess where the wall is, what it's costing you, and where it is safe to begin making a different choice. Question number one: where have you stopped being present in your own leadership? Not where you absent from the room. You're in every room. Where have you stopped bringing your real self into the room? The moment in a meeting when you knew what you actually thought and said something safer. The conversation with the direct report where you could see they needed you to be real with them and you stayed behind the script. The peer relationship where there was an opening for genuine exchange and you kept it professional instead. Those moments are information. They tell you where the wall is the thickest and what it's been protecting. Question number two: what do you believe being seen would cost your leadership? Name the perceived cost specifically, not generally, not I need to maintain authority or it's not professional. I want you to name it specifically. If your team saw that you were uncertain about a direction, what do you believe will happen? If a peer knew you were struggling with a decision, what do you believe that would produce? Most of the time, when you examine that specific fear, you find it was formed in a different environment. It may have been accurate then, but it may not be accurate now. You have never checked because the wall has been so consistent that there is no need or occasion to find out. Question number three: what would change if people on your team knew that you were a real person navigating a genuinely complex role? How would that change what they brought to you? How would it change the quality of the conversation in your organization? How would it change your experience of showing up every day? The answer to that question is the cost of the wall, not what it protects, what it prevents. For the leaders and talent development executives watching, because you're building cultures inside of your organizations, a senior woman who is performing rather than leading is not giving you her best thinking. She's giving you her most managed thinking. Those are not the same things. And the difference between them shows up in decision quality, in team trust, and in whether she is still there in 3 years or not. Picture the version of you who made the decision. You didn't tear down the wall. You didn't become an open book. You didn't bring your inner world into every professional conversation. You became deliberate. You decided with intention what you would allow others to see, the real you, and why. You started making small, chosen moments of real vulnerability in your leadership. A meeting where you said what you actually thought instead of what was safe. A conversation with a direct report where you acknowledge the difficulty of what you both were navigating. A moment with a peer where you let the real process show instead of the finished product. What happened was not what you feared. They were finally following a person and not a presentation. That's the thing. They had been sensing that there was more to you than what you showed. And that was finally confirmed by you being vulnerable. That confirmation made them trust you more. You're still composed, still strategic, still the leader this organization needs you to be. You are no longer lonely inside of the organization because you're actually in it. The real you, the one that's been waiting quietly for permission to show up. You gave yourself that permission, and that's all it took. Before the end of the week, I want you to run the visibility standard. Identify one place where you've stopped being present in your own leadership. Name specifically what you believe being seen would cost your leadership. And ask honestly, what would change if you were really known in that place? Then make one small, deliberate choice toward visibility. Not a confession, one moment where the real version of your thinking is in the room instead of the managed version. The emotional work that sits underneath this is fear, habit, and the grief of recognizing how long you've been invisible inside your own leadership. That's the work SOPHI was built for. SOPHI is my proprietary emotional strategy AI designed specifically for women leaders. It's the space where you process what's happening internally, work through what the wall has been costing you, and get clear on what you actually want to do next. SOPHI is the emotional thinking partner for the inner work that has to happen before anything external can change. The link is in the description. Listen, you're not lonely with all of these people around you. You're lonely because the version of you that is in every room has been so carefully constructed that you don't even know where it started, and you lost track of the woman who was her. She's still there, and it's your strongest leadership asset. This conversation is the kind of conversation you want more of. Subscribe. There's a new conversation every week. See you on the next one.